Okay, well, thank you all for tuning in again. This is Talking in Technicolor. My name is Ryan Carroll.
My name's Teresa.
And with us today we have our good friend Mike. Mike is sort of a legend in the local community, I'd say. A
multi-dimensional entity.
A multi-dimensional entity.
He's straight, man.
Just like you, though.
He is larger than life and has a lot of amazing stories. So I think today, if this is your first time watching us, I'd like to let you know that we're pretty casual. So we're just going to hang out and have a conversation with Mike and let him roam and see what he has to talk to us about, and
that's
kind of free form it.
Right.
Yeah, so the pressure is on you, Mike. What would you like to talk about today?
As I was getting ready to pull up, to get right into it, I guess, talk about some UFOs.
Oh, shit.
Talk about some UFOs? Alright.
I was really hoping we would do this. Me and Teresa talked on our last episode about getting Mike on to show us his UFO pictures. So he's going to show us on the laptop, and then in post I'll go ahead and edit the pictures into the video.
You never gave me your Wi-Fi.
Oh, shit. You need the Wi-Fi?
Well, see, the problem is, Ryan. So we're starting to live this tangible reality that we live, right? And we're starting to put it in this not real space of virtuality.
Okay.
So things like these pictures. When's the last time you took a picture? When's the last time you seen a little hut in the parking lot that you went and developed film?
You know,
Nobody does that, right?
Well, I'll say I lived in Portland for a little bit, and they've converted all of those to coffee shops. So a lot of the instant camera things will be in the middle of a parking lot, little tiny coffee hut, and there's coffee huts like every half block. There's so much coffee in Portland.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think that's weird and possibly troubling that we're starting to live our lives in this not real space. Or is that just proof of simulation theory? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about the transition from analog to digital.
Oh, well, absolutely. But in like, not just the way we listen to music, not just the way we watch things on that
on the
screen,
YouTube,
on that portal to lies.
Portal to
That's
lies.
what it is, man. Those things are crazy. These devices.
So does that mean we're lying right now?
No, we're not lying. There's nothing.
Believe us.
There's not a lie about us. But like, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to elaborate on that.
No. So
let's get back to that. Why don't you give me your Wi-Fi real quick so I can pull these pictures up.
All right. We are back.
We're back.
So Mike has successfully gotten on my Wi-Fi here, and he is showing us some pretty wild pictures. Can you turn it so Teresa can see?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to do my best to upload these to the video so you can see what we're talking about.
I'll give it to you. Yeah.
And where can people find this, Mike?
Well, this is just on my blog. Just some ramblings from a multi-dimensional entity. It's thirdeyefocus.wordpress.com.
Awesome.
I'll pay what it costs so I can get the .wordpress out there. It could just be thirdeyefocus.com.
That's great. So what do you talk about on your blog there, Mike?
Well, I mean, this is one of the things, right? I see aliens.
Where is this?
This is all in Colorado, actually.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So the photo of the moon and You see the old man in the rocks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
So
you
that's
telling me.
what
So-
the photos were of.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the moon photo first. Why don't you tell us about that?
So I'm a fan of the moon.
Hmm.
Right?
Fan of the moon.
Yeah, the Death Star we have in our sky. Yeah, I'm a
dude.
fan
Do
of
you
that.
think it's hollow? What do you?
Oh,
what's your
Oh, shit.
thoughts?
We're getting into that already.
It is, it's
So
something
you never
else.
know. It could be really made of cheese.
There
or
are
like
so
some kind of
many-
microwave
there's-
made of
it's-
Like on Wallace and Gromit?
Who knows? I don't know.
We have
We don't know
ancient,
anything
we have
about that.
ancient human tellings of the time before the moon, right?
Hmm.
We have mythologies about there was gods that drug the moon into place.
Sure.
And we have movies like Star Wars, the Death Star,
Mhm.
right? And then we have moons like Phobos and a couple other moons around our galaxy, our solar system,
Yeah.
that literally look like they were two halves stuck together,
Mm.
right? Like they were constructed. I mean, just looking at them, they literally look way more literally like the Death Star.
Dude, if I was an alien, that's how I would want to travel or just like observe other beings or something. Like you just kind of blend in more or something.
It's
like
there's
Yeah.
it's way
Why not?
bigger than any other natural moon in our solar system, right? Or other
Sure.
observable.
And you said it's Phobos?
Well, I'm really focusing on our moon, but
Mhm.
Phobos is one of the moons. Is that the moon around Mars, or it's one of the moons in our solar system?
Okay.
There's several moons. One of the moons around Mars, if Phobos isn't the one. Again, it looks like there's a ridge that's just this unnatural, perfect line all the way around the whole moon,
Interesting.
like a seam.
Wow.
weird.
It is, right? It's weird.
Yeah.
That it's not a
All
mountain
space
range,
in
right?
general is just weird as fuck to me. It's
Oh,
like,
both inner and
what?
outer space.
We're like in outer space on this rock thing, and we're like traveling, and like, what is happening? It just freaks me out when you like think about it. Like, we don't know what's going on really.
Yeah, but
No.
if we're really living in a simulation, none of that movement is really happening.
None of it's
Because if there's all that movement going on, why are the stars in the same place for so long, right? There's thousands of years we've been in the age of whatever we're in. We're about 100 years away from Aquarius, right? You know, we're in
The dawning of the age of Aquarius.
All right, that song was about what's happening, right? We literally are in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So that's like where the alignment of this zodiac or whatever is in the
Sure.
sky, right? And is in our sky, observable from our perspective. That stays the same for a long time. If we're moving all those ways, right? It's called hyperdimensional torsion field physics. Is the field of study that deals with this, right?
You're
I
just
know,
going deep,
right?
man.
Like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Yeah. There's
Can
a
you
whole
say
field-
that one more time?
Hyperdimensional torsion field physics.
Hyperdimensional torsion field physics.
Yeah.
And what is that? Give us in a nutshell.
Well, like torsion is the effects and the movements of like the different, or the effects from the different movements. So, for instance, supposedly we are moving around the sun,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
While we're moving around the sun, we're spinning and we're wobbling.
Okay.
So there's three movements right there. The sun is also moving. Our galaxy's moving.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of movements that we don't take into account.
Man.
Right.
So, from a fixed point,
So they're
then,
talking
do we
about
know,
if they draw trails of like how the Earth actually moves. It's like doing this crazy spin, right? They're like, what? So if it's doing all that, how are the damn stars in the sky in the same place for like 1,000 years or more? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
I would think
I'm
it's
not that
'cause
smart.
they're so
Well,
far away that it'd take a great amount of distance to move where the stars are in the
But
sky,
if we're
right?
literally on this Earth,
Yeah.
and the Earth is spinning and moving, at one point we're gonna
The
move
screenshots
away
are
from
freaking me
that,
out.
right? I'm sorry, they
Just,
go
like,
all.
things popping
They
up
did.
on the
It does. It gets weird.
Yeah,
Like, pointing right at
so
me.
Mike's computer is
Sorry.
falling asleep, and it is pretty pretty intense, some of the pictures that are coming up.
The screensavers and the background period. So while you're using the computer, every 3 seconds it's changing through thousands of pictures. And some of them are cool, some of them are disturbing. Some of them are, you know, kind of...
Pornography?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on your definition.
It's art, man. It's erotic art.
Okay.
Come on, Yoda smoking a bomb with his lightsaber. Come on.
That's hilarious.
There's just a bunch of stuff on there. This is good tea.
It is good tea, actually.
So, alright, back to
So
some of these UFOs.
And the moon's
So
not real.
this, I know, right?
Is that art?
So
this is a notoriously photographed saucer-shaped object around the moon. I'm not the only one who's photographed a saucer-shaped object flying around the moon. I should have pulled up those,
that's really
you know,
impressive.
ahead of time.
Have you seen Close Encounters by
Steve Sloan.
Is that his name?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Is that what's going on?
That was.
I want to say you goddamn right. I seen it.
Yeah.
He's coming out with a new thing too.
Really?
Yeah, I just saw a preview for it, but
Like a sequel to that, or
I think so.
really?
Wow.
Dude, I really want the UFO files to be undisclosed. Like, why are we hiding that information?
Well, let's
What's called disclosure would be the movement.
talk about what happened earlier this year. Me and Mike have been texting about this, and it's kind of crazy to me that no one's freaking out over it. But recently this year, the United States Navy confirmed that UFOs are real and that they've been studying them. Now let's clarify what that means. You know, when you say
Unidentified flying.
UFO, it means it's exactly.
We don't really know.
It's unidentified.
Right.
It could be a drone from another country.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an alien, but
Yeah.
you tell me what it is if you have an answer for me. I don't know. It's unidentified. It's flying around the moon.
I don't know. I mean, have you seen the Tic Tacs?
The Tic Tacs?
So the Navy footage that was released was of this. It looked like a Tic Tac shooting through the air.
Roger. There's some troubleshooting to
Can you box moving cars? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at
Is it like going like super fast?
this year.
And it was like going so fast, like there's
They had
no
to slow
way.
it down, like you couldn't even
Yeah,
barely see it with
dude.
your naked eye.
I
It was like
mean,
their
there's
equipment
There's either
picking
some
it up.
higher
Yeah.
technology that's being suppressed from us, or there's some other beams that are.
I think it's both.
maybe
Well,
both.
so food for thought. We've been using the same jet fighter since like the 1970s, right? So that's like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So have we not had any breakthroughs in air technology for fighter jets in the last 50
It's
years?
the same thing with your cars. We're all happy that they give us 34 miles a gallon. We're like, oh, it's pretty good gas mileage. Are you serious?
Yeah, dude. A lot of
Dude,
technology is being
We're still using. I mean, the world, at least in this country, we're kind of, for the most part, converting over to LED bulbs. But we're still using incandescent light bulbs that are so inefficient. They lose so much energy trying to light up that filament to give us light.
Yeah, but
And that's like 200-year-old Thomas Edison technology. And did he even invent that? Because he was like an appropriator of things, and then he was
Maybe we're just
the money man.
so he was the big guy behind the incandescent bulb, but because he was such an asshole, basically, Nikola Tesla had to invent his own light bulb, and just on the fly, in a few weeks, invented the fluorescent bulb.
Yeah.
Which is completely wild.
Right?
And because Thomas Edison had patented DC, Nikola Tesla decided to invent alternating current. And so Thomas Edison was so angry about this
Edison was
that
a
he...
dick, man.
Well, he actually... Yeah, he killed elephants with DC electricity.
He
Oh,
stuck
I
an
love
electrode
that.
up an elephant's butt
What?
and killed it
No, I love elephants.
in his construction of his painting, his picture he was painting,
Ugh.
that he was trying to villainize
Yeah.
Tesla's obviously superior. What the world runs on AC electricity. We plug our phones and our devices in on DC. That's it. The world runs on alternating current.
Well, even things that are DC, you usually see a power brick on it, so you have to convert it from AC into DC.
Exactly,
So DC is a very secondary system.
Yeah, it's just not. It
good
goes
for
a short.
batteries.
Yeah, exactly. Charging things.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, you got to convert it because the world runs on AC, and it's being transmitted in the much superior way of handling energy, at least out of the two.
Yeah.
You know.
It's pretty wild.
Can we bring something up as a side note?
Yes, let's
Talk
go
about things that aren't
Side note.
talked about, and we're talking about Tesla. Nikola Tesla, when he died in a Hotel New Yorker, right? This man that had over 700 patents that we just talked about on the whim as a response to Edison and the light bulbs came up with
just because he tried
the
to squeeze them
fluorescent,
out.
right? And his version of handling electricity is what the world runs on, right? Yeah, that guy, Nikola Tesla, right? The papers this man chose to die with, right? All his documents. Within a few hours, the FBI came in and seized all those documents, right? And guess who was the FBI person in charge with gathering all those documents, and who went through and gave the world the result of what those papers supposedly, all those papers and documents and things this genius chose to die with, right? And I won't even get into some of the suspicious circumstances around the death, period. But he was an old man, so he died.
Sure.
There's a gentleman named John G. Trump.
Oh, really?
John G. Trump is our president's uncle.
That's crazy.
What?
And he's
Is
the
that
one
real?
that told the world that no, they didn't amount to anything. It was just the ramblings of an old man dying.
Comment section. What do you think about this?
I don't know. It's just things that make you go,
So it's
Food
interesting.
for thought.
Maybe, I heard recently that LED light bulbs make some people's skin look orange. And I was wondering,
Really?
do you think it's maybe because of his old-timey family grudge against Nikola Tesla that he only likes incandescent lighting on his orange skin? I mean, it's a rivalry as old as time.
Oh man, that's funny. Can't get that out of my head.
Let's take a poll, guys. Subscribe if you agree, and subscribe if you disagree.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Trick. I think you got him, Ryan. Slick.
Right, let's go divvy this up. It's one for you, one for me. Two for you, 1, 2 for me. It's all Bugs Bunny trick.
Some interesting photographs, Mike.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, so back to the UFOs, right?
Yeah. Let's
So-
talk about that.
What's going on?
This one moves this way, right? So you see, what the heck?
Technical difficulties.
Ryan, have you ever had alien encounters?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
I have. Alright, this is going to get pretty wild, but just before I say this, know that this was completely sober. That's always the first thing people say. Completely sober.
Yeah.
I was about 13 years old, but me and my friend Jacob were coming back from bowling practice when we were kids, and I've told this story to a few people. And we're riding in the back of his mom's car. It's about sunset. We're in the middle of the country. I think he lived somewhere out near Milliken, Colorado, so kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Back in the day, this was the early 90s. And we look up in the sky, and sure as shit, we see some sort of craft, very large, not that high up, and it was almost shaped
What's
like
not that high up?
like 100 feet.
Okay.
Maybe.
Oh shit.
It looked like the size and shape of a Lincoln Continental, but with no tires.
What?
And sort of glowing lights underneath. Now, I'm not saying that it was a flying car, but
You sure it wasn't a DeLorean?
I'm positive it wasn't the DeLorean. But it was roughly car-shaped, so it didn't, have steering wheel and headlights and windows, but as close of an approximation as my mind tries to reach for, that's kind of what it looked like.
You
And
can kind of tell it was like a piece of machinery.
yeah,
It was an aircraft that was
that
flying.
was floating
Yeah.
completely silently. And then later that night, we both had like weird nightmares of something coming into the room. Although that could have just been, daytime residue, because we were both kind of freaking out thinking about this UFO we
Wait, who
saw.
was with you?
My friend Jacob from middle school.
So it was someone else that saw it too.
And for years, I still keep in touch with him, and he will confirm that this is true.
What?
My friend
Yeah.
Angela was with me when I took the pictures in the daytime.
Yeah.
They were out in Boulder hiking up Boulder Creek.
Do you guys think aliens are evil, or do you think... I feel like there's got to be some good ones and some bad
Yeah,
ones.
there's got to be
can't
so
all be
many.
bad.
There's
There's
so
probably some that are like integrated in our society or something. Like, you don't know.
So,
Just like us.
have you seen the David Bowie movie? It was his film premiere. It was The Man Who Fell from the Sky, or The Man Who Fell from Space, I think. That's exactly what he does in that movie. He comes from a planet that is run out of water and comes to Earth and tries to get water to bring back for his family. However, he becomes rich and famous and patents a bunch of technology that he brought from his planet to build himself a business empire. And
what
people,
if other people have already done that?
well, I
Like
mean,
Trump's
the Tesla company, Elon Musk, could be one of those. But the thing is, he ends up being an alcoholic and
Oh shit.
being like so involved in money, he forgets about his family back home, and they die on their home planet without him.
See how strong the vices of this earth
Dude,
is?
yeah. It just sucked him right in.
I highly recommend that movie to anyone who
Wait,
hasn't
what's it
seen
called?
it. I think it's The Man Who Fell from Space.
Cool.
Something like
Stars
that.
David Bowie. It was his
That
first
sounds
time on
awesome.
film.
Oh.
Yeah, other than like music videos and stuff,
Yeah, he was in Labyrinth.
Yeah,
No,
Labyrinth
it's a
is a very good one. He plays Nikola Tesla in, I think, The Prestige is the name of the movie.
Cool.
The man makes a teleportation box.
With the
It's come full
magicians.
circle, man.
Yeah.
With
I bet Nikola Tesla. was in it.
Wolverine and
I bet Nikola
Or
Tesla
has
could
some
be, if
kind of
anyone is.
connections, Like,
Well,
'cause
Tesla
didn't he
was
have, like,
amazing.
Dude, didn't he have like hallucinations when he was younger? When he got like
Listen,
sick or something?
no, listen.
What?
Just like just about every other human being that has come into humanity and shared with us what they have,
Mhm.
and has then changed basically the way humans do things for then on. They have all described, from Einstein to Tesla to Da Vinci to Newton to you pick.
Cricket Watson.
They've all described what we kind of sum up and term the Akashic record,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Or like maybe the collective unconscious. Would that be a good parallel?
E.T. extra testicle.
Oh my god, stop!
It's great.
Get
Come
it
on.
out, that's ridiculous!
Mike, I just can't.
Oh my god.
It's very distracting.
Yeah,
That's
so
your
I-
background.
My mother-in-law is a Jungian psychologist, so she talks about that as the collective unconscious.
So
and
they're
I
just
think
like
we
getting
connect.
access to that?
Well, I think we connect a lot to that when we do psychedelics and have
Yeah.
powerful experiences. I'd like to kind of turn the conversation to a theory I've had about aliens for a while, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this too. Aliens or random ecstatic experiences that maybe monks, early Christian monks or prophets or people who make great scientific discoveries might see imagery or have contact with entities. I think that a lot of what people experience is a nighttime endogenous DMT dump in their body. And so they see aliens come into their room, just like when you take a tryptamine-based hallucinogen. You can have encounters with entities. I know that I have at higher doses.
I've lived such a convoluted life as far as what we now term psychedelic experiences.
Sure.
Being that I was sick when I was a child, right? I had 2 cancers at 8 years old. because a few companies didn't want to pay what it was worth to dump their toxic chemicals that they were producing, right? Thanks, Seba Guide, Union Carbide, and Dow Chemical.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate that.
Ooh.
They make movies
man.
about this.
Mhm.
Danny DeVito actually just optioned the rights to a book that was written about our situation.
Really?
Yeah, in Toms River, New Jersey.
Hmm.
But anyway.
Danny DeVito. Let's let us know when that comes out, man. I'd love to see that.
I know, right?
Yeah. So tell us more about what happened with that.
So, what was I going?
You were going to talk about your childhood psychedelic experience
Yes,
when you
yes.
had cancer.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
from
Yeah, like this.
So I told you, I think I told you about some dreams that I've had, right?
Mhm.
That were recurring before I even had cancer. But at 8, I had cancer and I was under anesthesia quite often, right? Well, they were using ketamine. I had what they termed as anesthesia, one of the cocktails in anesthesia. I had what they termed as a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Maybe I was in a K-hole or something, right? And they didn't know
Sure.
what was going on. I don't know. It was a while ago. I'm old.
Oh, wow. And this is before ketamine therapy was even really talked about that much, right?
Yeah, no. This was before people were doing it for fun. You know what I mean? Yeah,
How
this
old
was.
were you?
Yeah, what year
Well, I'm
would you say this
42,
was?
and I was 8
Okay.
when I was diagnosed. So this was
2020?
88. No, not before that. Like 86,
86?
something like that.
Wow. That's
It's a while ago.
3 years before I was born.
You know, keep having birthdays, man, and you'll be able to tell stories about shit that happened all these years ago.
Yeah, I love hearing them, man. So you're laying there and you're on ketamine. So what happens next?
Well, you know how, have you done DMT?
No.
All right, well, and I know you haven't yet. Okay. There's this little hyperdimensional portal that you go through.
I like how you do this little. Is that what you do when you go through the portal?
I don't know.
You kind of have to creep in through some curtains.
I imagine in like editing, I have like sparkly tinkling sounds coming out of my like some space.
Yeah, I would totally do that.
It's not going to be nearly that well
It's
edited.
like, oh. Oh, I ain't got a hold of that software
That's
like
right.
that yet. We'll get together, man. I'll show you some software.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Not that I condone this, but you gotta steal it like everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, BitTorrent.
Huh.
Just use a VPN.
I would never steal software.
I don't condone do it.
You're gonna download, man. Come on.
I firmly disagree with this.
Alright, where were we?
So you are telling us
psychedelic
about your
experiences from
experience
early,
when you were
right?
10. Yeah.
So yeah, just my whole life I've had these moments in these spaces that you go when some of these substances, you ingest some of these substances, right? And now ketamine has been given kind of like, I describe it as Thanksgiving dinner, and ketamine and MDMA have been invited to dinner, but they got to sit at the kids' table. You know what I mean?
That's clever. I like that.
So they're at the dinner. They made it to the dinner. They just got, the research and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what dissociative, and I don't even know what MDMA is technically considered as far as those things. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Gosh, yeah, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
throw it out because
Well, I mean, it is.
I definitely get roasted in the comments if I said the wrong thing. So
Well, I mean,
you want that one slip.
methylene dioxymethamphetamine
Mm-hmm.
is an amphetamine.
Interesting.
But is it only an amphetamine? Is that a stimulant? Is an amphetamine
I think
a
I've heard it
stimulant?
referred to as an empathogen
Empathogen?
before because it makes you feel more
Yeah,
empathy.
you definitely.
Just like with ayahuasca, I know we were talking about the original, what we call harmala now, or harmaline, I believe. They used to call it telepathine because they thought an effect of the ayahuasca vine, if you just took the vine, was that you would be telepathically connected with people you were sitting with. So,
Dude, I've heard a lot of stories about that.
How many
Yeah.
times have we
Believe it.
tripped on not just having to do ayahuasca or DMT, but I don't want to call them less intense, I guess, psychedelics. It's pretty intense.
I mean, they can all be intense,
They can all be
especially if you're
intense.
camping.
I mean, the entities that I've encountered have all been on mushrooms. So, they could all be intense.
I have a yarn I'm going to tell at the San Pedro presentation I'm going to give at the end of the month with the Psychedelic Club at CSU, where I experienced some time and space displacements, was in another place completely vividly, and had some animal transformations. I turned into a giant boa. So I'll
You got
save
your
that
animal
then.
on?
Huh?
You don't even know about that. There was a whole 8-episode season that lasted. It's called
What is it?
Manimal.
Manimal?
Yeah, he turned into a black panther, some kind of snake, and like a hawk.
Wow. So I watched Animorphs and read
That's what
Animorphs when I was a
thinking you were
kid.
just talking about.
Because you're my same age, so you probably know Animorphs.
Yeah, dude, Animorphs.
Animorphs.
So I know
Yeah.
I know Teresa has also had some alien experiences.
Oh,
Would you be interested in sharing some of
Sure,
those, or
man.
UFO experiences? Since that, I think we've kind of settled on that as our general
Our topic.
realm of discussion.
I was hoping
Psychedelic
That's where we started, at least.
Dude, I feel like we need to normalize talking about aliens. Like, this is gonna be something.
Something's going on.
Something's going on.
Right.
We need to start talking about it. Stop acting like it's some crazy thing that. If we're already starting to like be able to travel the galaxy and we're like a younger galaxy, there's other galaxies that are way older. Why wouldn't they have a higher technology that you could, if we're already doing it in our
We live in the
early
backwoods,
stages?
the swamp of our galaxy. Right? We're on the outskirt fringe of it. There's so
Yeah,
much
dude.
more of just our galaxy
so much going on.
that's to be explored.
Yeah.
Do you guys,
And there's, like you said, all
Yeah.
those other couple 100 billion galaxies that we know about,
so me and a friend
supposedly.
were talking about something related to this recently. Why, if we think that the universe, because of the Drake equation, Drake theorizes that the universe is just thriving with life. There's so much infinite space that it's not
We
just.
can't be the only life. Like, what? That's just
Yeah.
absurd.
I think it's totally
It's
probable
absurd.
to say, like, they found protein on comets, on asteroids before.
Oh yeah,
They found
Fungi
bacteria.
can exist.
like you mentioned
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
your
dude.
first episode, the panspermia. Is
Oh,
that you
yeah.
that said that, right?
And I had that as a theme in my trip as well.
That's consistent, and
Dude,
not only
that
do we
makes sense.
have that consistent showing up in our enlightened experiences,
Mm-hmm.
but also there's like mainstream science
Mhm.
says the same, is coming to the same conclusion, or thinks that that's very likely.
Yeah.
You know, the way life was seeded.
Yeah, dude.
So
Some of
then-
the
Makes
basic
sense.
elements.
Like fungi were like on an asteroid, the asteroid hit Earth, and then it started to seed the Earth and started to
Yeah.
like, break down rocks, because like fungi are like the biggest reason that soil was created, and that's like when plants started coming in, and then
Oh,
the
yeah.
fungi would like come in, like, because the plants didn't have roots when they first got here, so like the fungi would attach and like help them get water, and like, dude, we wouldn't be here without fungi, and now it's like helping us. I don't even know.
Weren't those the ones you were saying are
So
called
interesting.
endophytes? Endophytes? Or endomycorrhiza?
Yeah, endomycorrhiza and ectomycorrhiza.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how trees can talk to each other with
Dude,
those.
they can like send information through it's called like the Wood Wide Web. Like
Yeah.
they'll like use it as the internet almost.
know.
Like they'll be able to connect different trees and this like, dude, soil is so trippy. Like I could like write a whole book about like psychedelic soils. Like it's just like this whole world underneath our feet that's filled with life.
It goes
invisible
unnoticed.
Life, dude. Like these
We
are
don't consider
microbes
it.
that are like in us, on us, in the soil. Totally invisible to us right now, but they like help us like break down food. They make food. They help plants. Like these little invisible creatures. We didn't even know they existed until we had like a certain
gut
tool.
biome?
The gut.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
it's
There's
like
a whole
everything.
universe in
There's
our
a whole
stomach.
universe in your stomach, on your skin. Dude, they're in the air right now. They're on us. They're everywhere. It's like
So,
freaky to think about.
a question I have for you then, Teresa.
Huh.
You're talking about the
Like
Wood Wide Web.
inside.
No, that's good. That's good. But the Wood Wide Web. That's hard to say.
I know, it's kind of-
But A lot of people, when they're in a deep psychedelic state, as you guys probably have experienced or have heard people experience, and I like to study the phenomenology, like what people experience while they're in that state. So what interests me is a lot of people describe seeing a web of life.
Yes.
Like a giant spider web.
Whoa.
Or like interconnected like tendrils or mycelium.
Dude.
Do you think that could be just symbolic of the great chain of life, or could it be the mycelial network?
Dude, I feel like there's a mycelial
Symbolic.
network
I've seen
that's
it.
invisible up here.
I've seen it
Straight
too.
up. Like
I've
that's
seen it
when I describe what I saw as a fractal grid, that's what I saw.
Dude,
So,
we're all connected through this
I-
mycelial web.
I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, I remember someone talking about the grid. That was Mike. And I saw the same thing
It
recently.
was the most intricate, because I've stopped and admired the intricate, amazing, huge spider web that I passed by. You know what I mean? It's like, that is amazing. I gotta just check this out for a minute.
Have you guys?
And it's so interesting and intricate and detailed and just there's layers to this shit to think about what's going on right here, right? This creature basically shit this stuff out, right? That's his silk.
Yeah.
At will.
Yeah.
Non-stop.
Yeah,
but
dude.
but the fractal patterns that this spider is making, and then they all have their own kind
Did you
of.
see it when they gave the spider drugs and it did like different webs?
Oh,
there was
yeah.
like one that had caffeine, it was just like, ugh, and there was like one that did cocaine and one that did weed, and it was just like kind of a lazy looking web.
So I've seen the spoof of that,
Oh, really?
but I haven't seen the actual,
I didn't know it was
because they're talking about like the weed spider makes a hammock and chills out.
That's hilarious.
No, but I've seen what you're talking about. They
Yeah.
literally affected the pattern that they were making the
Really
webs.
weird.
They, imagine the part where you got to figure out the dosage
For
to not kill a spider.
Right.
Right.
That's a weird.
What's the
science
LD50
project.
for
Right,
spiders?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would be a cool job, like giving spiders and shit, like drugs.
The wood spider is the most accomplished of all web-building species. Recently, scientists gave these tiny creatures a variety of psychoactive drugs to observe their effects on web building. When given a minute dose of LSD, the spider's web took on an unfamiliar, minimalist structure. When given caffeine, the web structure was not affected, but the spider's behavior was. Given THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, the spider didn't build a web. It built a hammock, where it lay all day and watched the caffeine spider go. When given alcohol, the spider built a web, found a mate, and raised over 100 young. But the mate got a restraining order, and now the spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The crack cocaine spider figured building webs was for suckers, waited till the caffeine spider was exhausted, then came up behind it and popped a cap in its ass. Nice web, Mr. Crack Spider. When winter came, the marijuana spider had no place to live. It ended up in the crack web as the crack spider's bitch. For more information on the crack spider's bitch, contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa.
So,
Mushrooms.
in middle school, we had an experiment, and this is like, I don't think they would do this nowadays, but we had a pretty old school science teacher in the 6th grade, and what she did was she gave us all turkey basters and cigarettes and a cup and a cricket, or a grasshopper, and we would put the cigarette on the turkey baster, light it, have it suck in the smoke, and she said, if any of you put the cigarette to your lips, I'm never going to be allowed to do this again, so do not do it.
This is so crazy.
So we squirted the cigarette smoke into the cup, and we could watch what the grasshopper did, and it would like be paralyzed and stuck in place and then you would take it off, and it would stay right where it is for like 10 minutes, and then hop
Weird.
away.
Whoa.
And so she did it as a way to show us the effects of nicotine. I guess on a grasshopper, so not super relevant, but sure enough,
Well,
one
nicotine
kid.
is used as like a pesticide.
Well,
so I guess maybe that's why.
I do that in my garden.
Oh,
Actually.
nice.
Mhm.
Nicotine can be a flavor enhancer, like salt.
Oh,
Like salt's not a spice;
Yeah.
it's a mineral, but it does something with our taste buds, and it can just increase the. It just brightens up the flavor, and you taste the food.
I can see
But
that.
we're addicted to it, and then we salt things until we taste salt.
Mhm.
Me included. I'm not like perfect.
Oh no, I love salt.
Sometimes if I sound like I am,
I'll eat
you know.
salt myself.
Well, that's all.
Wow.
Maybe not that far.
I don't- You might
Well,
die.
no, there's
Just like dried up.
there's like
Like,
good, you're not just talking about regular table salt. There's like good. I don't know. You might be, but there's like all kinds of like the pink Himalayan salt. There's I've said like black volcanic salt.
Yeah.
All kinds of. There's so many different salts, and they have their different tastes. And
So
you just take a little.
Yeah.
when we lived in Portland, my wife and I lived in Oregon for about a year or two, and they had many locally made salts. Like Portland, Oregon's very foodie, so we got a salt sampler pack, like 10 different little Tupperwares of salt. But the best one was a black smoked salt that the Kalish Native American tribe makes up in Washington, I believe. And it adds a delicious level of smokiness. You could cook something, just make your soup taste like it was cooked over an open fire. And for me, I find smoke to be an incredible flavor enhancer, so I'm all about wood-fired food when I cook.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
As you guys know.
I was too before I stopped eating meat a couple months
How's
ago.
your plant?
Yeah, how's that
diet
going?
It's
man?
going just fine.
What do you eat?
I'm-
Twigs and berries?
I mean, food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Are
more.
you putting mushrooms in your diet?
Oh, I eat mushrooms
Good.
almost every. Oh, I eat mushrooms
Good.
almost every day.
Do you go to our friends out in Hazeldale?
Brian, right? I have to go. I have to go out there.
You
Yeah,
can
I
go
have his
there
number.
and just buy, like, you can buy a tray from them. And they have, like, mushroom compost.
Fuck
Like,
that! I want a tour.
yeah, dude,
Hazelden,
they'll
right?
put you on
Hazelden
that.
mushroom.
Hazeldale.
Hazelden.
In Fort
I'm sorry, I
Collins.
want to say it right.
So I will say we are having for the Fort Collins Mycological Society. That's the club that I'm the president of, and Teresa the vice president. We are going to have a representative, Brian Sanders, come from
Do we have a date for that?
Hazeldale. Yes, we do.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm not going to say it right now because it's
Okay.
not confirmed with the brewery yet. But we usually meet at the local brewery, and he's going to talk about their whole operation.
Yeah.
They don't like to give tours because it's such a sterile environment, and before they've gotten contamination when people have touched the wrong things. Is my understanding.
Absolutely.
We should do, like, a virtual tour or something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we can
Well-
have exactly have Brian just go around with it.
And for anyone who's interested in like seeing what a small, mushroom farm that does lion's mane, cinnamon caps, oysters, we're actually going to tape Brian's talk most likely and post it here, so people can see it.
That's gonna be awesome.
When I get
Really cool mushroom thing.
when I get my my PF Tech back on,
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you guys some pictures this time. Well, I have pictures, but I'll like chronicle it more.
Interesting.
You know,
Yeah, man.
going back to the PF Tech versus the bulk substrate
Interesting.
didn't work for me.
No? Had some contamination issues.
Well, I
Process, man.
did, yes, but what seemed to inoculate fine still didn't take off once I made, broke those cakes up into the bulk.
I'd say some of that stuff kind of becomes as much of an art as it is a science. Personally, like, I've done a lot of outdoor stuff. So I really like to grow wine cap mushrooms and lion's mane. And the fun thing about outside is like contamination is less of an issue because it's not in a confined
It's weird
space.
how much contamination is an issue.
Indoors,
when
right?
you grow outside and for the most part it's just fine.
I think a big
Right.
part of that is because there's so many other microbes in the environment too, so it's kind of protecting you. Like
Yeah.
some growers will like inoculate their substrate with like a certain bacteria or something to ward off other
Interesting.
stuff. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Well, it makes a lot of
Look into
sense because
that.
when you sterilize it, you're creating sort of a monoculture.
It's just so easy for pathogens to like get in
Yeah.
there because there's nothing else to take it like protect it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like you guys have probably seen like trike, like the blue-green mold, and the fluffy cobweb kind of looking mold, cobweb mildew,
Yeah.
and the red lipstick looking one.
I haven't seen that.
That one's
I
interesting.
haven't seen that one first.
I've gotten that one on some oyster mushrooms I was growing, and also the like snotty yellow bacteria can be an issue. I think
Is that what's called?
it just looks like
Is
snot.
that the official?
scientific name?
No, I
Is that the
know
Latin term?
Yeah.
it's some sort of bacteria, but
Snotty actus.
it might be lactobacillus, but I'm not sure which one it is.
It's like a snotty yellow.
Yeah, it always looks like snot. And so, like, for some oysters I was working with last year, I found that if you let your grains soak for an extra 24 hours before you pressure cook it, that allows a lot of the stuff living on your grain to bloom.
Yeah, and then you can kill it.
You can kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it, like, because otherwise the spores can, like, they'll survive the autoclave sometimes. So you get it all wet, let the microbes come alive, and then you can kill them all, man.
Murder them.
Murder them.
The self-sealing
Hey, that
injection
sounds
port helps
that
too.
sounds just like the U.S. policy 101.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. So we still haven't gotten around
Oh, the alien.
Oh,
to
yeah.
experience.
It's so
That was a long
distracted.
time ago.
It's my fault.
Because I
It's
got
my
off
fault.
on a tangent about normalizing aliens, and then we like snowballed. And
Yeah.
Well, you can blame me. I made him smoke a blunt before we started.
we got like super high before. I was like, I gotta stop because it'll get weird.
Yeah.
Not me, I'm straight edge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. Actually, I was just
What?
joking. They must have got high on their own.
I personally do not smoke jazz cigarettes.
Jazz cigarettes.
Jazz hands. I don't need jazz cigarettes. I got jazz hands.
Oh my
That's
god.
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
That might be the thumbnail.
Doing jazz.
Yeah.
Dude.
So Teresa's
Yeah.
alien experience.
Yeah.
Let's-
Alien experience. Okay. Well, first of all, I've seen like glowing orb things before, like
Yes,
super
yes.
close up, just like these little, and they would just like zoom around kind of thing. But this alien encounter was mushroom inspired, and so this was like the most mushrooms I've ever taken. And it started off with me just microdosing. I feel like I always end up at the highest trips when I like start off microdosing. So I start off microdosing. I'm just like having a really good time, get the giggle kind of things, and I was like, man, this is fun. I just want to keep going. So I'm just like munching on them, just like they're candy or something. I just keep eating them and eating them. And there's this one point where I was just like super comfortable with the idea of death. Just like not like wanting that to happen, but just like, I don't know, I was just like, I felt a calm feeling about it or something.
Like if that's what's on the other side, then okay.
Yeah,
When
it was
that
just
happens,
like, that's
I'm
going to
not
happen to
troubled
everyone
by that,
someday.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just,
Interesting.
I don't know, I just had this mindset like, I need to just enjoy being alive now, and because we're all going to die someday.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
kind of a weird thing to think about, really. And so that was like when my trip was first coming on. And then I'm just eating, munching and munching, and I have to lay down because it's like really starting to kick in at this point. And so I'm like laying down, and I feel like I'm just like, I don't know, it's just like, I feel like I'm going really fast. Like I'm in a car, and just like something's like pushing me back because I'm going so fast. I could like hear and feel like
a whooshing?
like
Wow.
yeah, like whooshing, like when you're going fast and you like hear wind go like.
experienced that right there.
Really?
Not the
Yeah,
pressure,
yeah.
but that
Yeah.
Sensation.
kind of a breeze right here.
Mm-hmm. Just like going
What?
super fast. And so at this point, I don't know, I call it astral projection, but it was like I could see myself. I was like above myself. I could like see myself down here, just like in my bed. I was like watching myself from above. And then all of a sudden, I could also see myself in this other place, and it was like an operating table. I was on the operating table. There's like two beams around me, big light on me, and so I could like see myself in like both of these places. I was like above myself in both places at the same time, and I could like watch these beams over me, and like they would touch my brain. They were doing some kind of like brain surgery or something on me. Like they would touch my brain. I could like feel it in both places at the same time. Like I was in my bed feeling like this pulsating, like zoop, 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 kind of weird. It's like hard to explain it, but
Sure.
just like a kind of vibrating feeling in my whole brain. Every time I would watch them do it on the operating table, I would feel it in my bed.
Did you feel like an electrical feeling at all?
It was kind of electrical.
Yeah.
Electrical and like a pulsating.
So was it coming in waves?
I kind of feel it right now. Honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
you
weird
said you
'cause-
feel it sometimes.
Yeah,
Right?
I'll like feel it weird.
Did you ever check
like
to see if they
random
left something
times.
behind?
Maybe they left something in there, dude. Like
They
I haven't
find
checked, but-
implants in people all
Dude,
the
that's the
time.
thing.
So,
Like what they don't. What they're like. What
Yeah.
is this shit? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
My wife Sarah has a little thing. It feels almost like a tic tac in her shoulder blade, and it's always been there. It's same size. It's hard, and
we don't know anything about our bodies. Like if we scanned everything, like there could be all kinds of things we don't even know. Like we could have a tracking device in us. Like who the fuck knows?
So with these aliens, what did they tell you anything? Did they? Did you ask them any questions? What
So I was
happened?
just like on the operating table, like unconscious kind of thing, and they were kind of taller than most people, kind of skinnier and like kind of like a grayish figure kind of thing. But I couldn't really see like their facial or anything like that. It was kind of like I was up above, kind of far away.
So you were seeing like the top of their heads.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of like one of those medical schools where they're doing surgery and
Yeah,
operation kind of
surgical
Sometimes-
theater.
So
Yeah.
okay, so Terence McKenna talks about how hallucinations are like a species of reality. So like maybe
That's such a great.
I love that shit, dude. It's like we don't really know what reality is in the first place. It's like there's so much like we only have a certain amount of visible light that we can see.
Yeah,
and there's
just
so
because
much,
of our optical sensors.
there's so
like,
much
you
going
know,
on
our
right now.
equipment.
Like even with microbes, like I was talking about before, this is this whole like hidden universe right in front of us that we don't have access to unless we have a certain tool. What if there's another tool that we don't have yet that could give us access to some other reality that's right in front of us that we don't really know about?
Yeah, and what's interesting to me along those lines, I'd like to share a couple trip-related alien experiences, if you don't mind.
Yes.
My second trip that I ever did got kind of dark, and I remembered Terence McKenna saying, someone asked him, why when I do mushrooms haven't I seen entities? And he recommended two things, obviously 5 grams in silent darkness, is his main rap. I always say just remember to close your eyes for a while, because most people will see squiggles and maybe some fractal patterns in their room with them, but when you close your eyes, things get really wild. So I had contact with a kind of a fiendish demon like entity that was showing me disgusting pictures of like carnage and flesh and gnashing teeth, and then I laughed at him and turned into like sort of an ally in that particular trip. And then it started showing me all my fears, and one big fear of mine is gray aliens.
Gray aliens.
The grays, yeah.
Specifically gray?
Yeah, do you know the grays?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
kind of like,
What about the reptilians?
No reptilians.
No reptilians.
No, they're chill.
They're chill.
No, I'm just joking. I don't know that.
Yeah, maybe.
But no, it showed me like images of them and like just really exposing me to it, forcing me to see it to stop being scared, because I watched a lot of X-Files and stuff when I was a little kid. And, I was always thinking about those gray aliens. X-Files theme still gives me the heebie-jeebies to this day. Like,
You watch the reboot?
no.
Oh.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got that.
But, yeah, so, in this space, though, I've also had lots of interactions with demons or goddesses. One time I had what I can only describe as a space goddess come down from the universe and rip my chest open and vomit onto my chest cavity and intestines. But the vomit was like
vomit,
a healing plaster.
They get weird.
It was pretty weird.
Wow.
And that's part of why I chose this tapestry, is because I often see space goddesses. But this plaster went into my body, so a little bit more visceral than your brain surgery. It was, I felt like she was trying to get me in touch with my trauma and my anxiety. And I just saw like that my organs were covered in these strangling vines. And what she put on it, her essence or whatever, made those turn into plaster and crumble off.
Whoa.
And I will tell you, it was a scary trip, but the next day, that sense of anxiety that I was carrying in the center of my chest has not come back in the same way since. And that's been almost 2 years ago now. So, but I would consider that to be sort of an alien entity. So.
And a success.
Yeah.
And it's success. Like.
And so that's the interesting thing with psychedelics, and maybe you guys can speak to this. I always, when I'm in that moment, I think, okay, there's A to B, I take it, and then afterwards, I'm going to feel better in some way and have material to work with on my life to make my life better. All the stuff that happens in between, what is that? What is the significance of it? Does it come from inside of you or somewhere else in the universe? What do you think?
I don't know.
I am leaning towards our brain is.
So you think it's artifacts
like
of chemistry?
No. I'm leaning towards that our brain is more like a receiver.
Yes, I love that idea.
I love that idea, dude.
Where everything is coming from, right?
That's why the voice in our head sounds different.
Exactly, right? But like you can say something to yourself without moving your lips and verbalizing it. We don't hear it, but you heard it. Well, who the fuck was that? What was that voice? Yeah. And who was that heard it?
Yes.
Right?
So
like, what is that? That all is just
who's that rapper?
Mixed. That was KRS-One.
Yeah, KRS-One.
Well,
yeah, and I love that concept.
In like a lame book nerd kind of way.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
But in like sort of a book nerd kind of way, I read a book by, I think, Aldous Huxley, and he talks about the brain or your perception being a reducing valve. So there's so much information coming at you that your mind is more of a filter.
Yeah.
And he believes that he took synthesized mescaline or extracted mescaline, but certainly isolated. I'm not a chemist. But he took it and he said it. He felt like his reducing valve was open, so he was able to sense what he can't normally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Weird.
I mean,
so this is stuff that's like happening, and we're just like getting more
so
access
much more.
to it, or we're getting access to information that.
Well, doesn't that meld so much more with our personal experiences?
It does.
Than what they tell us is just simply, oh, you silly hippies.
Yeah, there's that Cartesian divide.
I've had friends tell me, do I come across to you as hippie?
No. No.
I've had several friends.
I thought you were a cop for the longest
time. I thought you were a cop too. We've talked about this.
Yo, you have no idea how much I've gotten at. You have no how much I've gotten at in my life.
Actually, that was a material of a trip that I had last year. I was like, I think Mike is a cop.
Yeah, I remember you
and I just was obsessing over it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I just need to take a little while. No substances. Calm down. Hang out with Mike a little bit more, and now I have like no thoughts in the world that you could be a Leo, a law enforcement officer.
That'd be funny if he really was, though. Like,
I know. He might
No,
be.
it wouldn't be. That wouldn't be cool, man.
So.
I know.
My pyramid guy calls me CIA all the time.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, something like that. CIA. I could see that.
I feel
Not
like,
today, CIA.
I feel like certain people, if they don't accuse you of being in the CIA, at least like on a weekly basis,
You know, there's
you haven't
some.
really made an
You ain't
impression
really
on them.
doing
Right?
There's rumors that the McKenna brothers, Terrence and Dennis, are CIA operatives.
Yeah, I've heard that about like every psychedelic person.
I know.
Yeah.
See, I think there's a difference between
Maybe we are.
being a part of an agenda with something like the CIA and the CIA being so vast and numerous and intrusive into our civilization and at least the Western world, and something falling under the umbrella of the CIA, a program that maybe they consulted with some people that were dealing with this shit. And if you're going to look for those people, well, who better than Dennis and Terrence McKenna, right?
Sure.
So I'm not saying one way or the other anything even like that happened, but just because something happens with the CIA doesn't mean you're a CIA operative.
Yeah.
And you're a part of this evil agenda.
Well, even Paul Stamets has his spooky
That
government
is not
story.
an endorsement of the CIA.
Yeah. Sounds like you're secretly working for
Fuck those guys.
I don't know, man.
No.
I don't know.
I
go either way on Mike.
My old roommate Shay. Shout out to Shay. I used to be reciting things I was writing lyrics. She's like, "Do I need to worry? They're gonna kill you, Mike."
Really?
You know too much, man.
So that's why I wrote that one verse, the one rhyme called "The Illuminati Murder."
Oh yeah. Do you wanna spit it out for us?
Spit it out.
I mean, sure, it might sound pretentious because they haven't heard the other things that I've written, but sure.
Okay, if I
Like,
can,
who does this guy think he is?
I'll put a beat behind it in post.
Oh shit.
A public domain beat.
Yeah.
So we'll let Mike get that up here for a minute. I also, while you're doing that, I had one more story I wanted to kind of go into about aliens before I forget. So two actually, but my wife Sarah and I are both secretly kind of alien nerds. We listen to Coast AM. We went on a road trip down to Roswell, New Mexico.
Man, I want to do that sometime.
Yeah,
We should all do that as a psychedelic club.
Word,
really
yes.
That'd be super fun.
The
How many hours is the? How long is the drive? Like 6 hours?
It's not too bad. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours, maybe. Carlsbad Caverns is right there, so that's worth it. I would never say just go to Roswell because it's kind of run down at this point. I went in the 90s though, and it was all kinds of attractions, wax museum, stuff that's not there anymore. Now it's just one alien museum. But in the gift shop to that alien museum, I found a book written by a local professor. But this gentleman is actually just like the computer lab teacher. So he's not like a professor of like
computer lab.
Yeah, he's just like the computer lab guy, is what it comes down to. But they dress him up like he's this university guy, and I looked up more information on it. But anyway, so he wrote this book that's not much longer than 70 pages about how he thinks Marilyn Monroe knew too much about UFOs, and that's why JFK had her assassinated.
Whoa.
Isn't that wild?
Man, I feel like...
They said he went on a bender, got too much, and too drunk, and blabbed to her about aliens.
Whoa.
If we're talking about death lists, we can't. Alright, so on a different note, right?
But one last other thing I wanted to get into is the alien story number 2.
Yeah.
So that was just conspiracy theories I thought it fit in. But on another trip, I always convinced myself that what I'm seeing is totally normal. And I think later I'll remember this, and I see this every day. Whatever wild, crazy thing it is, it totally doesn't surprise me, ever. Because I convinced myself it's normal. And I saw a floating biomechanical pyramid in space that was a planet. The jungles, I could see the ocean, the waves, little birds flying up in the clouds. It had clouds, but it was like a pyramid floating in space. It had a sun that it was going in front of. It looked like it was like I was there seeing this artificial pyramid planet. And what's interesting is I told my wife about it, and she's she's fairly straight-laced in terms of this stuff. She's very supportive, but it's not something she's into. I asked her, so do you think that this thing I imagined or thought of exists? And she's like, in an infinite universe, Ryan, it does exist, and you saw it. And I was like, because she's such a rational person, kind of floored, because my thought is anything you can imagine in an infinitely large universe is not only possible, but probable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you told someone else that there was a floating rock in outer space and there was this big old ball of energy around it, like, that sounds crazy, but we're just so used to it. So
That seems familiar to me.
Like,
yeah.
What if there are other
Right,
big
it
planets
doesn't-
and stuff?
Right.
Yeah, man.
So I just wanted to share that, like, pyramid stories. Anyone, I would love to hear if anyone in the comments section has seen anything like that on a trip, or any alien craft, or high technology, other planets. I know the DMT people will probably chime in on
They're like,
that.
I got some stories. to
You
tell.
know what's familiar when I talked about that hyperdimensional portal that you go through?
Mhm.
And anybody that's done DMT, anybody that's done DMT will be familiar with what I'm talking about. You know, while your head's buzzing. But what something it resembles is the bridge to Asgard
Interesting.
in the Marvel movies with the Bifrost.
Well, I mean, that's a thing in Nordic mythology. Is when we were talking about Amanita muscaria and Siberian shamanism, right? Like Alfheim, where the elves live, that's a place in Nordic mythology.
Oh, yeah, I know it's what makes, if you're into like comic books and those that kind of stuff. That's what makes that character so interesting, because it's not just a comic book character.
Right, he's like a god.
A Norse mythology god that is probably very likely existed. Honestly, you know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, in my opinion, I think it's a retelling of much older things, and when we get consistently throughout whatever time you want to pick to look at, and whatever part of the globe you want to choose to sample from, they're all kind of saying the same things. Like all religions, every one of them are extraterrestrial religion. Every single one of them says somebody from up there came down here and taught us a bunch of shit.
Well, and I gotta say, guys, just in response to that, is that my undergraduate degree is in cultural anthropology, so we do a lot of examining of oral histories, and it's something that's really being revisited now. Is where less try to approach things in a less, frankly, racist way than they did in the past.
From on the top of a soapbox, like looking down our nose at, because people lived a long time
from
ago,
our ivory tower,
as
right?
if they're lesser.
And the interesting thing is, now that we're examining these oral histories, and that was the case back in the day. That's why you see Native American information in the Natural History Museum instead of the History Museum, because traditionally scientists thought of them as being lesser, like that belonged in with the wolves and the monkeys and the dogs. And, so, two stories on that are, maybe we just go into one from ancient times. The gods in the Vedic and Indian Hindu religious complex, they talk about them flying ships that look just like flying saucers, the Vimana.
Bells that they have in their temples left behind. They have those bell-shaped objects
all
around the temple, and all in that, in like India and Tibet, and out there all the way in like I don't know what I'm doing with my fingers. Where is that Angkor Wat and all that? Like Cambodia, Southeast Asia area. That whole area of the world, there's like a bunch of the pyramid, and those structures have these bell-looking things. They're basically what they were describing the Vimanas looking like. And these bells have Buddha's sitting in them.
Interesting.
As if they're not bells. Are they bells? Or are they doing something with sound frequency and sitting inside this sound? You know what I mean?
Well,
or is it a depiction of some flying thing that they were, their best thing was to shape it like a bell?
So there is, when you talk about sound, an up-and-coming, I would say, discipline within archaeology is acoustic archaeology. Mm-hmm. So they will go to places and test the sound and see what sound effects there are, what the acoustics are like in a particular area. And more often than not, they find that sacred sites have very interesting sonic qualities with a lot of echo, with sound carrying.
Even the cathedrals, even the great cathedrals around the world.
Well, the Roman theaters.
Yeah.
Or Grecian theaters, right?
Well, yeah, where there's like the Acropolis is, I think, the below structure, and then I forget what it's called.
Amphitheaters is what I'm thinking of, because they would amplify your voice.
I mean, we have that big, one of the most famous amphitheaters right here, Red Rock.
Oh,
Red Rocks
yeah.
is an amphitheater.
Based on ancient technology.
I mean, of course, it's concert venues that are speakers and stuff, but it's a if you turn all the speakers off, you can still hear from the stage all the way up in the stands and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think we can see there's absolutely some significance to these things. These people weren't stupid in ancient times or in modern times in indigenous settings. There's so much more truth to their words than people traditionally thought. But if you look at the story of Hanuman, it was a legend. He was a monkey god or a monkey king in, I believe, either the Vedic text or Hinduism. But they talk about wanting to get another avatar to an island in the Indian Ocean, and that he commanded an army of monkeys to throw stones into the ocean until it builds a land bridge. And if you now look at satellite imagery that pierces the surface of the ocean, underground or under the silt, you can see there's rocks that have been piled up to form a bridge across that length of water. Cool. And this isn't a pretend thing. This isn't a conspiracy theory thing. This is real. Now, it could just be a story that they have about how that structure got there, surely, but it appears not to be natural. So it's possible. Humans have been around, modern humans, for like 250,000 years.
Yeah.
We've been recording history for like 4 to 10,000 years the most. And so we have amnesia about our own timeline. Mm-hmm. So it's possible we could have risen and fallen multiple times, I think.
Well, think about how dynamic our planet that we live on is. Right? Which way am I facing? Where are the mountains that way?
Mm-hmm.
See? That makes sense already. I even from it.
You are now. You are now. If you can feel where the mountains are, you're Colorado now.
Official.
Well,
that's coming from a native.
that's the sense, or that's the result of the Earth being is a just constantly moving place, right? So that's like two continents crashing into each other because of its movement. There used to be a glacier several times. There was a glacier miles and miles thick across our whole continent that moved. It's like a racer, just erasing stuff out. How much stuff could have been there that literally got erased out? Our whole planet is very dynamic
Scraped
that way.
clean.
So if we're talking about a couple 100,000 years ago, or possibly more, that there was humanoid activity or other life form activity, right? I mean, look at what's live today. Look at a mimic octopus.
Right.
Dude, those things
those are
awesome.
So
cool.
And they're so smart they can look like a lionfish.
Right? And like instant too. Like a chameleon has to slowly transition into the couple different shades it can do.
Well, they communicate visually, whereas we use sound. You know, that's really interesting, I think.
Well, you know, it kind of talks about like the memes.
And what was that movie that played with that? Was that Arrival? Did you guys see Arrival?
With the language, with like, it was like water.
It was ink splashes.
Yeah.
It was like these giant octopus creatures that the first contact, one of the people they brought in was a linguist, and linguistics is a subsection of anthropology.
She was a very cunning linguist.
So, she was. But I really think that's someone you'd want to have on board for making contact is a linguist.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we already know of other life forms on our own planet that we can't communicate with any of them really.
There's life. There's that bottom of volcanic fissures at the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, the pressure and the chemicals that get created, like, they're not supposed to live there. Or like in Yellowstone and some other places where all that sulfur and different stuff.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. The streamophiles. There you go. That's the word.
Archaebacteria live in the Earth's mantle.
Archaea.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. They can fucking live anywhere. They don't give a fuck. They'll live in, like, bottom of the ocean.
You thought roaches were badass as far as that goes.
And that just makes you think about, there's got to be other kinds of life that could exist in other places that...
What about,
so they found
Jules Verne?
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He talked about...
we had any kind of
got it.
submarines or anything to go to the depths, right? He talked about things that created their own light, bioluminescence, right?
Mm-hmm.
He described what they'd be made of, you know what I mean?
Did
Kind
he?
of stuff. And it's like dead ass what we the light, the spectrum of light that they kind of produce. He got all this shit dead ass correct.
And he said it was powered by fission too before anyone was even talking about nuclear fission.
Wait, who is this?
Jules Verne.
Jules Verne was the author of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Captain Nemo.
Dude, I feel like a lot of science is, like, hidden in these, like, myths or, like, these stories. And, like, I feel like we have an intuition about things, and, like, art and stuff can bring that out, but, like, the science can make it more.
Yeah.
But the science should, like, take more from art, and, like, instead of seeing it as some silly
Our
thing.
modern scientific community is no different than the things that we don't like about the organized houses of religion that most of us shun.
A lot of science is religion. Like, they even have dogmas.
Yes,
like,
and that's exactly against what science is supposed to be.
Dude, there's so much, like, I get in fights with scientists, like, you don't understand.
I love the fact that we actually have conversations on a regular basis with scientists.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Great.
So one thing I'd like to talk to you guys about too along that line is the subject of dogma. Specifically, I'd like to touch on dogma in the psychedelic community.
Oh, shit.
So let me posit sort of a question and have you guys riff off of that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I've noticed a lot of people come into this. Myself, I came in as an atheist, but there's a lot of people who've sort of lost their original religion, who are no longer, say, Christian or whatever faith they grew up with. And then I find it interesting that as people have these powerful transpersonal experiences during psychedelic trips, they will often adopt other systems of belief to explain what's happened, whether that's tarot or chakras, or maybe you really get into Buddhism or dietetics or whatever it may be. I know a lot of horoscope and tarot card people and crystal healing and pyramid stuff, as we've talked about a lot. So I wonder what you guys think about these systems of dogma that we, even as we're trying to escape them in certain ways, a lot of us begin to self-impose it a little bit. Terence McKenna with the I Ching and Time Wave Zero developed his own dogma.
Oh my god, the I Ching is
it's like almost
crazy.
You can't avoid it. It's like a human thing to have that or something.
Yeah, I catch myself relating a lot to Peruvian cosmology.
Have you explored the I Ching?
Oh yeah.
In the Library of Babel?
The Library of Babel. Are you talking about the Tower of Babel?
No.
Is that
that's
another
the name that it's coming from, but so the I Ching, let's see, which I have, it's like you can't do one without the other.
Do you have an I Ching app?
I have a psychedelic folder.
Oh, okay. And while he's looking this up, tell you guys a little bit about Time Wave Zero. I know. Well, do you want to speak to it?
I mean, I don't even understand it, honestly.
So,
I don't even...
Talk about it.
We learned about this when I was in...
Is this from The Flash?
Huh?
Is this from The Flash?
The Flash?
Terrence.
So Terence McKenna.
Also.
I was watching, or I took a world religions class in my undergrad, my associate's degree at Ames Community College in Greeley, and my teacher in the unit on the I Ching introduced us to Terence McKenna. I knew nothing of psychedelics at this point, and the subject matter wasn't even psychedelics. It was about time wave zero in the I Ching. And he believes that the I Ching, where we have a periodic table of elements, he believes it is a periodic table of time. So he found that between the differences of the different, I think they're called tangrams, the little symbols that you get when you throw your stones or your sticks or whatever you're using, he thinks that the differences between them reveal a complex equation about how time works, and made a computer system to help predict it, like to use it to predict time.
Do they resemble these at all?
I don't know these.
Wave zero,
See
man.
how it's the connections?
Interesting. We'll have to post a picture of what Mike's talking about here.
All right, so the I Ching kind of gives you info on the way forward and some clarity information, and sometimes you got to interpret it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now the Library of Babel, so the I Ching will show you your role. The Library of Babel will show you it's old. Right? In the Library of Babel, if you type something in the searching, right, and it's set up to where there's a shelf, and then there's this volume, and there's books in that volume, right? Doesn't matter what you put in there. You can go to a specific place, and it's in there already.
Wow.
I've tested it with lyrics. Like, I'm like, nah, that's nonsense. I can't just chalk it off as an algorithm, because the way you can go back to that same spot, and that information is in there. So it's like it's kind of going along with the Akashic record and how everything that will happen already has happened. Everything that can happen already has happened. You know what I mean? The future, the present, and the past is all happening at the same time, kind of thing.
There's nothing new under the sun, right?
Same, that's all these things are alluding to that same, you know what I mean? Principle or whatever that people are trying to describe. Just like religions, like we're trying to, like the main three, right? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They are the same fucking thing. Excuse me. Anybody that gets offended.
I mean, there's some argument for that.
Millions of people who have been arguing. Jesus, whether or not you believe in Jesus or not, right? In the Quran, Jesus is actually mentioned more times than in the Bible.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It is not a complete different belief. They're all from the teachings of Abraham. That's where the three main religions come from. And then when you get away from those being the same, so all right, that basically they will lump them in the same category.
Yeah.
And then you compare them to other things, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, there's a bunch of different religions.
Well,
They're all saying the same thing. Us with science today. We talk about all other dimensional entities. Well, they talked about demons and spirits. But we're describing the same thing.
So,
different verbs.
We had a interesting metaphor on just that, and that same world religions class where we had Terence McKenna. She said that what we're doing as humankind is we're like blind people feeling an elephant, and one person feels the leg and says the elephant is like a tree. One person feels the tail and says an elephant is like a paintbrush, and someone else I forget the rest of them, but the point is that we're all trying to grasp in the dark at the same thing.
That is a good picture. I like that.
Isn't that neat? Yeah, so she was a very bright woman.
That sounds like a cool class.
It was a very cool class.
Cool.
I bring that out of my indoctrinators.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually, I'll have the other kids be like, yo, Mike, ask your question.
Yeah, I would love to see you in that class.
That would be great.
That
And
would be
I
That's
remember in
one
a
of
high
those-
school biology class. So
Yeah.
we had the wrestling coach, the varsity wrestling coach, which he went to high school with my parents. My father was a big wrestler, and that guy knew me since before I was born, right? So, and there was the girls' field hockey coach,
Mhm.
and then she recruited me. She had me selling her blow pops.
What?
Because I used to buy her blow pops all the time.
Nice.
And she's
I
like,
thought that was a euphemism for a second.
No.
I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I sold her
Right?
some
Did
blow
you have
pops.
an inappropriate relationship with the teacher? No, literally blow pops for the.
It's like, we are trotting some dark ground tonight.
No.
All right, so blow pops.
No, I never had one of those lucky hot teachers that wanted to do inappropriate things with me.
You know, I grew up.
Abuse is real, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh, certainly.
there's, I mean, a 17-year-old guy.
Stop.
No, no.
Just stop.
So,
Not the same kind of
Don't
trauma.
want to hear it.
yes, I'm with you on this one. Now, I actually grew up with a girl who ended up becoming. She was a very strict, very church every Sunday kind of girl. Very kept herself well put together. I won't name her name, but she actually, I was floored to hear this, became a 5th grade teacher and slept with a 12-year-old boy that she was giving weed to. So she's in prison now.
Well,
that's so
that's a whole different. I wasn't making light of that. That's not appropriate at all.
Sure. But I would never guess, because this was always such a holier-than-thou kind of girl.
Dude, it always seems like those type of people. Like, you can't...
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got to have a little slice of evil in them. And the people who hide it the most are probably the ones who are most evil.
Well, there was a story in my town, right? And the kid that was involved, I'm not going to say, I knew him, but he wasn't, a friend of mine. I knew of him. There was a teacher. This is the story that was told about this innocent teacher. Turned out it's very much not the way that was the news story told it. You know what I mean? Is my point.
Sure.
So supposedly this nice teacher got brutally murdered in a Caldor parking lot.
A Caldor, is that like a
Caldor
grocery store?
was cross between a little step up with Sears, but a little under Macy's. You know what I mean?
Okay.
On the East Coast. I don't know how far else it was out. But that's not all that happened. It wasn't just this innocent white woman that got brutally murdered out of nowhere. It wasn't just some random thing, that's what the news story, that's what the most people understand. She was buying crack. And there was a problem with that, and that's what happened. You know what I mean?
There's often a problem with that, I hear.
It wasn't just somebody going to the store and all of a sudden somebody carjacks her and she's murdered. Wow. It wasn't that kind of thing, but that's what they made it out. So
sure.
There's how many things like that in our environment that we're informed about that are just lies. I ain't nobody. When I was sick when I was a kid, I was in a newspaper twice. And I ain't nobody important, especially then. The sick kid that looked good, that was a cute kid on camera, and I got some sympathy points, right?
Yeah.
I was misquoted both times.
Oh, dude, the media is so bad.
And it wasn't even some important thing.
It's terrible, dude.
It is.
They're totally different from what you said.
So
it's another reality.
Can I tell the Spacehead story?
Oh, please do.
So, me and Teresa started up the Fort Collins Mycological Society, the Mushroom Club. We were working on that together. So, when I was filing paperwork for that, I had to look up Teresa's address because I was waiting to hear back, but I really wanted to fill the form out now. So, I Googled Teresa. And I was trying to find out.
Never Google Teresa.
I was trying to find out, because you can usually use voting records to find someone's address. And
Man, that's very good.
Yeah, so, but I found her quoted in a very conservative journal talking about psilocybin mushrooms, and then I was like, wait, there's a comment section, and I had to go down there, and she had said something to the effect of, you know, we're not all just space heads trying to get high and see aliens. You know, we're doing it for medicinal use and to heal trauma, something like that. So someone down below put quotes and said almost the exact same thing Teresa said, and said, yeah, all this space head does is see aliens. I can just tell.
Head, man.
And so since then I've called Teresa Spacehead.
Yeah, dude, I like it though.
That's it. That's your nickname.
Spacehead.
Spacehead.
I'll take it.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Word.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that though.
Talking in Technicolor, episode 2, Spaceheads.
Yeah,
Spaceheads.
dude.
There's the title. There it goes.
Yeah.
Fucking Spaceheads.
Add that in, Stevie. Just kidding, we don't have a producer.
No.
Oh, Jamie.
I mean, Joe Rogan has one, right? Jamie, pull that up, Jamie.
Jamie, pull that up.
We
Jamie
need to get a Jamie.
Order around. You should be our Jamie.
I'll be the Jamie.
You would be a hilarious Jamie, dude.
You
Like,
gotta find
you'll
another
just be
name
like
called
on the
Jamie.
side, like looking stuff up when we need it, and, like putting in random commentary when you need it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Popping up distracting things.
Yeah. Yeah, random
Speaking
porn.
of distraction, let's see where we are at time-wise. We're sitting about an hour and a half right now. It probably took us 15 minutes to get started. I know you had looked up some rhymes that you were hoping to spit for us this evening.
Okay.
So let's do that before we wrap up here soon.
Alright, so I was talking about the Illuminati murdering me.
Yeah.
Well, it was my roommate used to make fun of what I would write in the content, and she'd be all worried, like, they're gonna murder you. So I wrote a rhyme called Illuminati Murder. I figured out how I'm gonna die. What I surmise with my third eye. Illuminati will surprise, and one of their best spies will make it out like what I said was all lies, like I wasn't really wise. But what they do not realize is that all of my three eyes are open. So like a phoenix, from the fire I will rise. Leaving disappointed with some sighs, because when the body dies, I'll be back in a new one, lamping with my head between some new thighs. I'm really tired of these guys pumping the public full of lies, with all of these ties to all of the countries and companies, as well as the music and movie industry. Tools of control and power is what it turned to be. The school system turning you into mindless worker bee. Put down your Maccabees when you talk to me. I bet I can make you see all the inconsistencies. But that's a separate topic. All those discrepancies that I have a tendency to tend to see, those labeled as heresy, those the same as those labeled as heresy. I'm sorry, I'm messing up.
No, you're good. Loving this.
But that's their legacy. For me, there will be no clemency. A true freedom fighter's life expectancy is incredibly short-lived. The fix are too long to list. It's over in a blink with a blink and a pink mist. Or they'll just insist that you have slit your wrist. If I even make it on the news, that's what the story is. I'm saying this right now. I'm saying it quite loud. So don't you believe that shit.
Nice.
Damn, dude.
I gotta get my cadence better. I'm new at this. I didn't grow up writing rhymes. I'm kind of like a year and a half into this.
You
I
die
think
by
you're doing a great
suicide,
job.
man. I'm gonna be very suspicious of the
Right.
government.
So-
Don't worry, I will make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah. We need to get
It'll be
this
a
information out
lot
there
better
now.
when I actually record it and I can edit it and it's without mistakes.
Have you guys
Stumbling over words.
read the Bloodspore article
Yes.
by Hamilton Morris?
No.
Check that
There's
out.
a fellow who was researching the agaricus mushroom, the big industry mushroom out there, I believe, right? And he knew something and got murdered. And there's like actual recordings of like I think it was a police officer calling him threatening someone, right before he got murdered.
Well, what about Paul Stamets on Rogan,
He was
like
involved in
refusing
that.
to
Yeah,
go
dude,
into
that was-
it any
he was
further?
part of that, yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
what that was
I
about?
think that's
Yeah.
why.
We
Yeah.
will post a link to that article in the
I've been
description.
trying to figure out what that was about for a while. That's
Yeah,
the
dude,
first
there's
clarity I
shady
got.
shit in the
Yeah.
mushroom world.
Guys,
About
read the article
portobellos.
and tell us what you think.
Right? Yeah. Can we talk about DNA for a minute?
Oh, I know you like to talk about that.
Yeah.
Alright.
I know I said we're wrapping up, but we're gonna keep it going.
Okay.
Okay. we need to talk
Overtime with Mike.
So now
about-
we're
Overtime.
Want to make a title?
we're talking about the Akashic record, right? Yeah, overtime, Mike. And another thing.
We should just like
One
have you
more
like
thing.
this. Yeah.
Oh man. So we're So we're talking about like the Akashic record and stuff.
Yeah.
So we were also talking about the government and some agencies doing some things. You know, Trump's Uncle John going over Tesla's papers. All
Dude,
that
the
stuff.
feud over fluorescent lights. He wants those back.
There's an agency that I just became aware of. I don't remember their acronym, but so we know about DARPA, right? The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's the Department of Defense's agency of basically making things of the future today. That's how I describe it, right?
Sure.
They made it a lot more convoluted when you go on their website of how to find actual footage and things.
Like Dr. Thaddeus Fincher from the Fincher brothers. Oh my gosh, right?
I don't know what that
Great.
Oh, it's a great show.
Goddamn monarch.
If you like 70s, like Johnny Quest and
Yes, it's
Hanna-Barbera
like Johnny
cartoons.
Quest.
Yeah.
It's definitely like Johnny Quest. but
That's the
anyway.
closest thing, right?
But anyway, distracted.
We're both like old guy TV, Mike.
Okay, TV.
It's not even that old. Well, I guess
Johnny Quest,
is
the
old,
original
yeah.
is.
All right, but so where I'm going with this, right? So the shit you can go on DARPA on the website if you're a patient and go through, right? You can watch innovative advancements on robotics, on flying things, on camouflage. Oh my God, the things they have on cloaking it's amazing. Amazing. And that's just you as John Q, member of John Q Public, right? No
Sure.
security clearance or anything. And it'll blow your mind away. You're like, holy shit, that's fucking awesome. It's disturbing, actually, the robotic shit. But anyway. So now there's this other agency that I found out that they just invested $48 million into researching DNA. Guess what they want to do with the DNA?
Don't they want to store data on it?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
So I told you
I feel
guys
like this
about.
has happened before, and that's
Well, what I've told, right? I mean, again, we talked about the Bible and stuff, right? Or we've talked about a couple subjects of religion and things. So going back there real quick. The Bible has a story about a guy who got information about a flood coming, and he built an ark, right? And the Bible gives us exact, specific measurements in cubits. We know what an ancient cubit was.
Oh, yeah,
It's a specific measurement that we know this vessel was this big. That is not realistic for this person in the Middle East to gather up two of every kind of animal on the planet to save all the species, right? But it is certainly big enough for a genetic laboratory to store genomes of all the creatures alive on the planet.
I think you were talking about this the other day.
So,
yeah.
I talk about this stuff a lot. You guys are familiar with this stuff a little bit.
I'm with you on that, except that I would say one thing, like, we also have to think what they mean by the world. They might mean their world, like, for instance, when, Europeans found not as the first people to find it, obviously, but discovered the West, discovered the Americas, rather. They referred to it as the New World. So it's possible the world could just mean their region, and two of every animal might be two of every animal that they typically keep. Like it could be 2 camels and 2 chickens and 2 goats. And if you look at it from that perspective, the measurements could maybe be more feasible.
Well,
but I also like the DNA idea.
Even with that, though, right?
I want this one to be
You still
true.
have some pretty large animals. Then you have to have, 40 days and 40 nights while it was raining, and then it took another however long for the waters to recede. So you have to have enough feed to feed all these animals as well, right? It's a valid point to consider. But with the DNA, so fast forward to modern times, we have these scientists who have I believe it was an ebook. It was a digital file.
They
They
can put
took
like
a
movies
strand
and
of
shit
DNA.
on DNA.
Yeah, they
Wow,
took a strand
really?
of DNA
It's
and
weird.
they downloaded or uploaded a digital file, and then was able to re-download this usable digital file
Wow.
and get their ebook or whatever.
Dude, it's
they
so
had.
weird.
Yeah,
that
I've heard
there's,
about the book.
So this
before.
this 48 million from this new agency like DARPA that I found out about, right? So their investment, like you were correct, is how to store. Well, look, the world we're living in, how I alluded, how we're living in virtuality. We're creating too much data. We don't have a place to store all of the data that we're generating, right? So it's gonna be just going away unless we figure out a place for it to stay
Isn't
somewhere.
that what the internet is? Though?
Right.
It's staying on there.
Yeah, but
That's our
we're
new
still right now we're still tethered to physical servers to store things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So,
So we got to figure out different ways of doing that. So the thing that we were explaining about being able to store those digital files, right? So they measured with that with the strand of DNA that they took and the amount of information they're able to store in there. They determined that the DNA that's in a human body can store approximately 14 billion years of data.
wow.
And that so happens to coincide with the approximate age of the universe.
Really? That's very
So
interesting.
does this mean we found the Akashic Record? Is all information
it's
already
inside
in
of us.
in us already?
Dude.
Well, some people, and I've heard, so I listen a lot to Coast AM.
They want us walking, talking servers. They want us to be our data
And a lot of
storage
people
devices.
have theorized that your junk DNA
Dude, there's no such
There's
might
no
thing
do
such
as
thing as junk.
anything.
Yeah.
right.
Everything has a purpose.
Yeah.
Why else?
It could
So
be dormant.
It could be
Yeah.
storing data.
Yeah. Dude, the more we learn about that, I bet we'll be able to like someday like just be able to read our DNA and it'll like play out the story of our ancestors or something like that.
I mean, why not? Like, think of the internet, right? Think of the accumulated wealth of human information
Yeah.
at our fingertips that we walk around, even though these things are radiating and killing us. But we have that access,
Loving every minute of it.
and even regardless of how there's a lot of manipulative information that's put out in front of us when we do pick them up.
Yeah.
Because how many times do you pick up your phone and you were on Facebook or something, right? And you went to go do something on your phone, but now you pick it up and it's on Facebook, and you get all distracted. You don't know what the hell you were even trying to go do.
Oh man, I was trying to sleep last night at 4 a.m. Facebook made a ding, woke me up. Like, you won't let me sleep now?
Yeah.
Oh, uh-oh.
Oh.
That's alright.
We're
We're gonna switch batteries.
Okay.
We are back. We took a little break there. Ran out of batteries. It also rang 4:20 o'clock.
Yeah, had to go smoke a blunt real quick.
Yeah. We had to go listen to some Phil Collins, as my friends would say in high school.
We had a safety meeting. That's what we used to call it.
See, for us would be like, do you want to listen? Is there something in the air tonight?
Nice.
See, I don't remember us getting that creative with the...
You're just like, let's just go smoke weed.
Let's go smoke.
We were smoking with the security guard in the car at the dumpsters in high school. Got him in trouble.
Oh no! Silly thing for people to get in trouble for, just a little bit of pot.
Well, my grandfather popped, and he's popped to many kids because he was the head security guard for the Toms River Regional School System.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
My town. And he worked there till he retired, like at an older age that he needed to retire. He just turned 97.
Holy shit, dude.
Wow.
Oh, right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Black don't crack.
Cheers.
Right? Word. Cheers to Pop. Dead ass. I definitely cheers to Pop.
Cheers to Pop.
But he was like, many people know him as Pop, not just his actual grandkids.
Yeah.
So, this security guard that's smoking with us, right? And all of a sudden he gets in trouble for being too cool, right?
Oh no.
So I'm like, listen, man, I could probably get you fired. Right? Not that Pop would actually do that for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm like telling him all this shit, right? And then he got all worried. But then we're in the car. We were a bunch of hooligans.
Yeah.
We're in the car. We're parked in the senior parking lot, right?
Oh,
We're not
wow.
seniors. So he comes up and tries to take the pass. Tries to take the kid's parking pass. He reaches in there and tries to take it. So my friend grabs his arm and closes the window up to
Oh my
here
God.
and drags him like through the parking lot
What?
and let him go.
Oh
So he
my
drove
gosh.
to the
Was he
parking lot.
okay?
He stumbled. He was a little bruised. He'd be alright.
This is a little old man?
No. My grandfather was an old man. This was the young security guard that
Oh,
was.
I thought this was a 91-year-old man.
No, this was him. I'm sorry. No, this was like this
I'm so
20.
concerned.
This was like this 23-year-old. He was just not that much older than us in high school, right?
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
he went from him being trying to be super cool, being all friendly, and he's smoking weed with us in the dumpsters, behind the dumpsters, and you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden he gets in trouble, and he's being Mr. Hardass all of a sudden,
Had to crack down.
right?
Oh man.
That's tough.
So when you're at high school age, you don't always respond to situations with the most tact or forethought, right?
Right.
So you do stupid stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. We salted a kid's lawn once who
Salted his lawn? What?
salted his lawn,
Put salt on it?
his front lawn.
So his
We covered
grass
it in
would die?
salt. All his grass died for like 5 years.
We're gonna kill your plants!
No, listen,
That's
it's great.
Yeah, it was brown. His whole yard was brown.
dang, that's a fun
Listen,
thing to-
since we're past the statute of limitations, right? I used to work for this landscaper called Cerami back in New Jersey. I led this like employee revolt.
Oh no! Of course you did.
Well, because I realized they were shorting us pay for who knows how long. You know what I mean? I like mistakenly uncovered it, and it might have been like $24 or something like that. I think it was. I found
It adds
out,
up,
right?
though.
Yeah.
And how many employees you
You're
got?
like,
You got
I'm
like
not gonna
300
let this
people
fly.
working. No, they had like legit like 150 different people working there, right? And you're shorting what all of us $24 every paycheck
Ugh.
for however long. I don't know how long it's been going on. So nah, man. So I mentioned it, and other people started checking and realizing like, yeah, man, and it was all like
That's
the
why
same
the CIA
amount. It literally was like $24. It wasn't 25. It was like a little off, right?
Right, an odd number that was going to look legitimate.
So, but it was the same with everybody. It was the same amount. So it wasn't. So even that didn't.
That's thousands.
Yeah,
of
to
dollars
the individual, it might not look. It might look off. Whatever. It was ridiculous.
No, I can tell you,
You
man.
buy a lot of mushrooms with that much. I mean,
Right.
good amount each month. Fuck.
So anyway, the reason I bring it up is
Yeah.
because of the grass.
Oh.
So out front of their building, they had that putting green.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That kind of grass where you have to seed that, let it grow, and then it kind of like locks into each other.
Oh yeah,
It's not just regular blades.
beautifully
It's
manicured.
expensive.
lawn.
It takes, you got to maintain and all that stuff. So they had this whole front section that was all that putting green, right, in front of their building on the street. I used to regularly do donuts in it.
Nice.
Oh my god. I bet you were such a little hooligan back in the day.
I
can
mean-
see that.
I mean, you know, a little bit. Sometimes.
We all were. Man.
Well, now listen. You know what though? All right, I did do some things like that, right? Actually, I was an adult when I did that.
Oh goodness.
I was like at least 18.
You gotta get weird
And for a couple years, I did donuts in their lawn out
Really?
front. A couple years in a row. Yeah, they were bad as shit.
Yeah. They're like,
Because
this
they
little
don't
shit.
understand. They love that lawn.
Mhm.
You stepped on that shit, they would be about to fire your ass.
Wow.
You
back.
get weird out
And I
that
did
lawn.
donuts in it with the car.
You were like,
Wow.
fuck your lawn.
That's wild, Mike.
Fuck your cat couch.
Dude, you know, I used to.
It's like chopping down. It's almost like chopping down somebody's trees or something. Like it takes a while.
No, that's. I mean, and I talked to this kid with the lawn salting as well a few years after high school, and I was like, "Hey, so you know, my older brother got pissed off at you one time and salted your lawn," and he's like, "What?" I was like, "Did he put salt on your lawn?" He's like, dude, we had lawn care specialists coming out. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with our lawn. It wouldn't grow for 5 years. And I was
That's
like,
hilarious.
I know. I know.
You fucked them up for 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
I mean, don't salt people's lawns, guys. It's
I
really
mean-
dumb.
I mean,
to do.
unless they're really being a dick.
yeah.
You know what I
and
mean? Sorry,
Alright.
they might edit that out. I don't know.
No. Don't do it. Or listen to Mike. You have
Unless you're
autonomy
being a
over
dick.
yourself.
I mean, you can do what you want.
Yeah, you are a grown ass man or woman. Don't listen to me.
As you know,
Who
the
am
show's
I?
not for kids, so
Who am I? I'm just
Turn
a
it off.
regular
Salt
multi-dimensional
wine.
entity, just like you.
yeah. Well, I think on that note, the subject of vandalism, we've talked about some wild.
How did we get here?
We've talked about some wild
What's
things
happening?
today.
Aliens.
Aliens, dude.
Extra-dimensional
DNA.
entities,
I
DNA.
like the DNA thing. We gotta talk about that more.
Oh,
They want us walking, talking servers,
I
data
think-
storage devices.
I think we can be pretty sure that we won't run out of stuff to talk about with Mike. So
Yeah,
Mike will
You should definitely come
absolutely
back on, dude.
be back. Let us know what you think about this.
Maybe next time I'll have a little more of an outline. So we're a little more.
That's alright.
all over the place.
No, we were hoping for exactly that
Yeah,
today,
dude.
actually. And
We got some good stories.
I feel like we went on a journey together.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could oblige.
Yeah, so I want to just thank Mike and just
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming.
thank you guys if you've hung on for this
Glad
long.
you're
Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah.
I love that you are. You know.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.